Welcome back to season 3 of Gradcast, Real Stories from UAL, where we divulge, discuss, and sometimes despair over life after graduation. During this episode, we'll take you through a UAL grad's personal career journey with the hopes that you'll be inspired, encouraged, and learn something new. I'm Nabia, your host for today's episode. I'm a graduate from 2022, and I'm joined with Apruva.
Hi.
Do you want to let us know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2018, did a degree at Wimbledon College of Arts, fine arts, and yeah, it's been a while, so yeah, thank you for having me here.
The first question I'm going to ask you is, can you share your journey from graduation to where you are now?
Yeah, so again, long journey. I graduated in 2018. I did a BA in fine arts at Wimbledon, and I, on thinking back, like there was a pandemic which covered it as well. So some of the key points I think that happened was, of course, very challenging after university. I think the day I graduated, I was quite upset, and my parents visibly saw that. Part of the reason being, as you would know, working in the arts and cultural sector, the money is scarce and like finding a job becomes quite competitive. But I think all that I've learned from, the long years, I would say, from 2018 till now is like a lot of patience and like trying to bring back to the same goal. Like, do I want to make art? Like, yes. How do I do that? How do I make it financially viable? And like, again, lots and lots of, I guess, work experience. So I think if I look back, it's been mainly like saying no to cool parties and then maybe later on getting a chance to go to them. But yeah, I guess a lot of hard work, time and patience.
So what was like the first significant moment for you after you graduated? You were like, kind of like your, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing moment, or like job, for example?
I had my first graduate job, I think straight after university, but if I say the most significant moment was like during the pandemic when I got a full-time job. That was partly because the first job that I ever had a lot of learning experiences, I would say, but with the first job after like that one, it was more like, I can sustain myself. Like all the goals and aims I had, like of being able to afford a studio, living in an expensive city like this, getting time for myself instead of worrying about what's going to be my next job and how am I going to freelance. So I think that full-time job did give me that stability and like that cash flow that was needed. So that was quite a significant, I would say, moment in time, which I couldn't recognize then, but now, yeah.
All right, so then were there any unexpected like challenges or surprises that came across like once you graduated, things you weren't anticipating happening?
Yeah, I mean, in the life of an artist, if that doesn't happen, then I can't make my art. So of course there were quite a lot of them, I would say, like personal ones and career-wise. But in terms of a significant one was that job straight after university, where, as you would know with a lot of creative jobs, like HR doesn't exist. You do it for the experience, or you do it, because you have certain reasons, X, Y, Z, if you want to gain from there. And I was in a similar scenario and also on a visa, so that complicates things because I was reliant on the job to not only pay my bills, but also be here in the country. And I think that was a learning curve where I realized, okay, the next company I go to, it has to have an HR because of fair policy, partly because of my ethnicity, women working in the arts, like I need that safety net. Taught me a lot about myself and like how much I can sustain in a difficult environment.
What was that experience like for you, like coming to London? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I think, to be brutally honest, some parts of me were running away from a culture I was familiar with, and that was just personal circumstances, but it was exciting as well because London has been, the UK has been a hub for arts and culture for as long as I remember, and it was exciting to just see the other end of it, the East and the West divide, because I'm originally from Delhi, India. I think as soon as I landed here, I pretty much realized there was a lot to learn and in different ways to fall and come back. What are
some of the biggest differences you realized, like upon arrival, like you're like, oh my God, this is so different?
Yeah, I think I could not like summarize it as eloquently as I would do now because culture was a main difference. Like as much as we like, when I say we, like Indians have a strong community here, like there were lots of differences, like in the way, let's say you say sorry or thank you for like the little things and the big things. And it's easy to assume that, once you land here, you can just learn it in a week's time, but it takes time to like get used to the kind of way of talking.
So when it comes to like LCC community, did that help in a way, like being part of like UAL and stuff like that?
I think it did. It massively did. Part of the reason was like I wasn't expecting like a campus like environment where you just have one campus and that's all where people rotate. So it was quite good to be able to kind of go from one college to another because Wimbledon is quite down south. So being there, like I still had access to Central St. Martin's or like LCC or any other colleges that I wanted to go to and the events and everything that happened and met loads of people, which is partly how things move forward with like the community in terms of interest.
So then if you had to give advice to like anyone thinking of like from an international perspective coming to the UK, what advice would you give them?
I think embrace yourself a little bit before coming in the good and the bad ways, because it is, I think, kind of a large shift in the way you're going to be processing information or reacting to it. But other than that, be open-minded as well, because I think as much as you would like to know what it's going to be like and the anxiety that comes before it and taking that plane from your home country and your familiar, like, kind of sweet dishes to food, like, be open to what you can learn here, because it does change you a lot. And I think from then to now, like I was 18 when I moved here, so that's like young, you know, starry-eyed, till now I'm like, it's pretty good I did that because I'm so independent now and I know, I think, to a large extent of what I want. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then I was doing a little research on you earlier and it was about the Netflix and Chill exhibition that you did. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was exciting. So that's how it came about. Like, you know, as I was talking about different campuses, like I met a couple of people from, I think it was at that time, Chelsea College of Arts, because I was doing printmaking quite a lot. So I used to go there for exhibitions, like viewings and stuff like that. And one of the girls from there ended up organizing a group exhibition. So she did a call out, but also sent me a sweet little message. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really great. And then let's do it. So it was just a matter of like connecting through those routes and putting yourself out there. And then she just arranged it at a pub. We got together. It was a group exhibition. So that's how it kind of came about, like different interests, kind of varied art styles, but putting that together in an exhibition.
So if you were to do that again, what would you do differently if you would? Or what, did it go perfectly the first time?
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I would take my time a little bit more, because I think one of the few things I didn't do, like when you're in university, you have just so many things which are grabbing your attention, and I think it was like a year from the final show or like 6 months. So I was so distracted by like, oh my God, how am I going to finish my degree? Like, you know, this is just an exhibition and what after? I was so worried. And I think in fear that what I would do differently is just be able to enjoy that moment. Like, as philosophical as it sounds, like when you're in university and are able to exhibit or like go out or make those connections, they're quite raw and you don't know where they're going to lead up. So yeah, taking a moment and like just enjoying them and like properly cultivating those relationships.
It's like building a network. How do you find that? Is that something easy to maintain? Like once you graduate, everyone that was on your like course and like in your college, was it easy to like carry that forward to now, considering it's been a while since you graduated?
I'm old. I think it's good. Like it's I think it's both. Like I wouldn't say it's like a super easy journey, because like, you know, you graduate, like then everybody's looking for their jobs, or, you know, they're busy, you know, with their partners, or like life happens, right? So it's not like a linear trajectory. But I think what I have noticed is like some of the friends that you know, maybe you didn't even talk to that much in university, they end up being your best friends. Like at least with me, that's what happened. And they're still working in the sector. I wouldn't say I have like a very large community now, like because people moved away, lots of international students. So that's quite like obvious, like people take planes to go back home, start new lives. But I think the beauty of that is like now if I want to go visit a country, I know that friend is going to be there and they're in the arts. And because arts is quite international, like it ends up being quite a good thing. But yeah, in London, it was like, I think a little bit of hangover from university in terms of community, but a lot of that was rebuilding that through other channels, because there are so many other exhibitions and you talk and you're like, oh, you were in UL as well. And I did this, and it just connects again.
So I was going to ask, now that you're a graduate, what is your future looking like? Like what are the projects that you have ongoing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, future is a dangerous question. I'm glad you didn't ask me my 5-year plan, because I wouldn't give you one.
I was this close to asking you, asking you how far you were.
I think it's scattered in a way, but in a, I would say, deliberate way. So right now I'm doing a full-time job. So I'm at this company called Spectrix. I'm a senior consultant now, so I've progressed over the last 3 years. So it does pay well as well. Plus, it's still in the arts. So it's a software company for the arts, like theater, cultural institutions. And I think as much as I'm happy doing that full time, eventually I would like to go part time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be, you could say, like a future plan. And the reason for that being so I could put more energy and like work into the studio that I can afford because of the job. And also just make art, really take some time down and figure out exactly what you said, the
I feel
future
like the
plan.
biggest thing as a graduate is like trying to stay in touch with like the arts when you've graduated. So like it's difficult. I feel like it is.
I mean, it is difficult, but I think there's beauty in that because I think I was a very focused child when I was doing my degrees. I was like, yeah, the show and like, yeah, like it needs to happen and no parental pressure, even though I'm Asian, like nothing to do with that. But yeah, like I was so focused in like, oh yeah, I need to get this show right. I need to make sure, every bit has to be right. And like, this is my last moment. Like it felt like it because it was the final show and loads of years and money gone into it. But I think what I realized, like, taking that pressure off, like after graduation, not by choice, but like by circumstance, because then you really need to think about, okay, so can I afford the lifestyle that I want after I'm graduating? That kind of, balances it out. So yes, there's pressure, but then the beauty of like, I've learned so many different things since I've graduated, not just limited to art.
Like you mentioned Asian to Asian here. It's that like, yeah, the pressure they put on you once you graduate to like, do something, make sure you're employed and things like that. Like after you graduate, it's more intense. Like especially in the South Asian community, they'll be all over you trying to be like, okay, what you do now, especially with something like art and design. Do you feel like you ever struggle with that? Like trying to prove like, oh, my art and design, like it's worth it. Like it's,
Yeah, I think it was self-induced pressure. Like I had very liberal parents, so I'm quite thankful for that. But like other than that, I get it because I had obviously my peers and still do. Like we're like, either forcing like other kinds of expectations, parental expectations. And I think one thing to keep in mind was like I was always quite stubborn about doing things my way. And yes, I failed at a lot of things and my parents did rescue me here and there, or I had a home to go to, right? Like everybody almost does. But I think what I did learn from that was like I chose a difficult career in terms of like, I know it's not going to be raining money as soon as I get out of university, but the experiences that I gathered, and now I'm at a position to be able to look back and it's like, okay, I'm glad I was quite focused on like, if this doesn't work out, then this, like the goal, like I said, it's scattered, but it was always like, I want to be able to afford this, or, I want to get a studio in an expensive city like this. So, and then I think what I'm trying to say is like, as long as you have like a little bit of an idea for where you're going and you understand the value of money, I think your parents will calm down. You don't have to do a corporate job, I guess, to satisfy their needs.
It might be a difficult question, but like from when you graduated and then to now, like having been a graduate for a few years, how much have your goals changed, like in terms of your aspirations in your career?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think a lot has changed. Like I said, I was so focused and I was like, as soon as I get out, if I don't work these many hours, or like I was doing 3 jobs at one time.
Oof.
And it was just like, no Sundays. I look at the sun outside. It's hot right now, but it's like you look at the sun outside and you're like, oh my God, is this what my life is going to be?
Yeah.
And then I think from that, it changed to like, yeah, it's really cool to be able to work under an artist. If you can afford that, that's great. Again, immigration was part of it as well. Like if I wanted to stay in this country, there's certain things I need to do.
Did you have help with that? Like did someone help you out with figuring that? Or was that all you on your own?
It was just me on my own, unfortunately, because as you would know, with the current, like, it's not just political climates. It's like, every country has their policy, let's just say that. And you have to figure it out on your own. Like I can't afford to pay lawyers to get the visa stuff sorted. So it was like, I think it was learning by mistake or like just doing, really. And I think that's what life becomes. So yeah, hard question, but good one.
Okay, yeah. I was hesitant to ask it, guys, but I did. So I was a home student, so I didn't really have the issue of like getting a visa and things like that. How was that experience for you?
I think quite grueling, if I'm honest. Like it was, I wouldn't say it was one of my worst experience, but yeah, it would cut really close. And part of the reason being the lack of information, I guess. And that's just to do with the way things are, countries and policies and visas and immigration. It's always a very complex subject, I would say. So in terms of support, I think there was quite a lot of good resources, like some that university provided. Ukiza is a really good website as well. I think they're quite helpful because, again, I did went through a pandemic as well. So that was a different kind of a visa issue where it's like, I literally can't go back. So what are you going to do exactly? But yeah, so I think one of the things I was thinking about with the visa stuff is I think you need to read the news. Like if you are an international student, and regardless, I think even if you're a home student, you should read the news. But like the reason for
Read the
that
news.
being, the
Okay.
reason for that being, like if you want to be up to date with the policy, and it just changed, I think last March. There was a lot of talk about it. We're gonna have elections, and it's gonna change again. And I think there's worth keeping up to that, partly because the more information you have about that, the better off you are in terms of not having that fear-induced kind of culture of like, oh my God, like I'm an international student. If I don't get a job, then what's going to happen? Like, and plus, I don't just need to get a job; I need to get a sponsorship, and that is quite expensive in the arts and cultural sector we are. Like, that's exactly why it was difficult because then you have to pivot. But yeah, I think the more aware you are, the more kind of reading you can do. I also made use of like a lot of resources which are online, like those lawyers, so you get like the first call free kind of
Right.
thing. So that was useful. So literally just anything I could scrape. And part of the plus of being in the arts is like people are quite helpful. So if you have an employer who's willing to sponsor you, make sure you've had that conversation quite strategically, like not leaving it as a granted. I think it's quite important. And also being able to talk to people like who are doing it, whichever sector it might be. Like if they are on a visa and they're doing it, their journey is going to look quite different, and it's worth talking to them than somebody who hasn't done it, I would say. Yeah,
That was great. I do have one question that I really, really want to ask you. So as a graduate, I felt like I struggle with this. I want to know your side of it. What kept you motivated after like graduation to like stick with art and design and like your field and things like that? What was like the biggest factor for you?
I think I don't know how encouraging it would be, but I think after I graduated for a year, I decided like I'm not going to make art. So that's how discouraged I was. Partly because, I think I had done a lot of that art making when I was in university. And as I graduated, I was like, oh my God, this doesn't leave me anywhere, like in terms of a job prospect, or like I wasn't sure of what I wanted to do basically, which I assume a lot of people go through that just because life changes once you're out of that secure bubble of a university. But I think what did keep me motivated was like I was quite desperate to make art. So even if I couldn't afford to make it like in a massive studio or in the dream job that I had in my head, I could still sketch. And I think, with time and even now, I'm becoming quite comfortable with the idea that you're making art for yourself. And yes, exhibition is great, like, specifically speaking about fine arts, and like if it pays even better, but like everybody's journey for that is going to look different and life will come in the way. So it's like, I think some personal interrogation in terms of like why was needed, and that year, that I would say a gap year from making art really helped with that, even though I was doing other jobs and all of that. But yeah, I think it's just I need to make art to survive, and that's just for me. And if I can't sell it or if it doesn't go anywhere, I don't think that causes me dissatisfaction, or like it's not a roll-on effect. Like I'm not going to make art because X, Y, Z. It's like as stupid as it sounds, like, why do you dress up and go out every day? You do it for yourself, right? So that's more important than exhibitionism, I guess, in some ways.
That was genuinely really inspiring. I felt that in here, resonated so deeply. Thank you. That was such a good answer. Okay. Another question I wanted to ask you, any international students that plan on staying after graduation, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, advise is a heavy term, I would say, but like definitely talk to your people, talk to your community. When I say your people, like I know it can be intimidating asking questions such as, hey, you made it here, like how do you think that happened? Or like from cold LinkedIn emails to like you do have a huge community at UL, like from your tutors to anybody, like just connecting. And I think that's from, as I said, advice is a heavy word, so I'm not sure about that. But definitely for me, that helped, where I was able to like ask for help at the right time. And it's a life challenge that probably everybody should keep in mind, like asking for help. So yeah, community, connecting, networks, because they made me so much more aware of like how to do things, especially when it comes to visa and sponsorship, where I think the more brains you have at work, the better it is, because it's quite challenging to unlock the language that's online in terms of like how to get a visa or how to get a job or how to get a sponsorship. So that was key. And definitely when you're looking for jobs, again, be strategic about when you want to ask that question. I think that was quite key because I quickly realized a lot of places I asked about, hey, I'm on a visa, so like what's going to happen? Like, I'm really into the job, and I knew they could sponsor me. But I think I soon realized like it's also a question I can ask them later, like after I've got the job, because why not? Like, you know, if there is a no discrimination policy in the UK to get hired, that's a fair question to ask afterwards, the way I asked before. So it's like, you know, small things, but like, you know, again, it's all about reading and understanding the center. It's a lot of human psychology, I would say, as weird as it sounds. But yeah, I think get your resources in check and read as much as you can, and yeah, apply for jobs like a normal person without that fear induced in like it's so difficult, and you know everything is difficult. So it's
That is
like
true.
there's no end to that, and I think that's what kept me at par. Like where I was like, okay, I can see there's this challenge, and how do I target it? So yeah, just a bit more step by step.
So when it came to getting your sponsorship, did you have any challenges or difficulties with that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did. Like, how can it be an easy journey for a person trying to get a visa here? Yeah, no, as sarcastic as it sounds, I think it was a learning curve career-wise as well. And I think what ended up happening was I was fresh out of university, really keen to get on a job, and I did get it. It was under an artist, but in a very difficult circumstance in terms of I was one of the only staff, no HR as usual. So I think I highlighted that it's important to do your vetting before you get hired. And I was being sponsored by that. But I think a lot of details of that sponsorship were kept kind of hidden from me. So it was quite challenging in terms of like being able to find out, hey, is this kind of legitimate interest versus like, how does it really work? Because, you know, when you're that young, I was I guess 22 something. And you don't really think about the challenges of like crossing a border, like staying on a work visa and all of that. So I think that was like kind of very stressful, very challenging. But what it did teach me was like, okay, I need to again read because a lot of that fear around whether this visa is like valid, like, you know, I was being exploited as well in that kind of job in terms of doing tasks when I was sick or like getting bullied because of my culture, so racism as well. But like out of all of that, I was like, who do I even ask help for? Like, if I lose the job, then I lose the visa. And that goes with almost everybody who is on a visa sponsored by work. And I think I with incredible difficulty found those resources, like whether that's online or like being able to challenge that, because you'd be surprised as to how much information is there on the internet and people are willing to help, especially if you're in a challenging scenario in London or elsewhere in the UK. But also, again, keeping that faith in to like, okay, there is fear, there is law, like it's not like lawless. Yes.
Thank you so much to our guest, and thank you for listening to UAL Gradcast, real stories from UAL. We hope we managed to give you guys some comfort in your next steps and what you do, or hopefully motivate you to take those next steps. So yeah. Bye guys.